Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It. I'm Nina Rosner, and I'm here with our favorite licensed professional counselor, Kyle Hargrove. Today, we're going to be talking about, is your partner attached to manipulation? Yeah, so we're talking about attachment styles. We're also talking about the topic of drama and manipulation because things are not always as they seem in relationships. Before you dig into this episode with us, though, I want to challenge you to go over to greaterimpact.org and take our marriage assessment. It's a brutal beast. It will let you know, it's based off of data by the Gottman Institute in terms of, do you have a masterful marriage? Are you great at that? If you are, we want you to let us know because we want you working with us. If you're not, you'll find out, and then we'll have some free resources for you. So greaterimpact.org, go grab your assessment. So this whole topic of manipulation is, well, it's kind of dicey because nobody likes to be thinking that their partner might be manipulating them. So maybe we start with some definitions first. Like if you were to describe what manipulation is, like what really is it?
Oh, I get to be the oh, what really is it person?
Yep, you do. It's your turn to make somebody mad today. I do that on the regular, it seems. So you
Do
take
I feel honored? Yeah. I didn't see that one coming. Uh, man, manipulation. I'm not aware of anything other than maybe depression that wears so many hats or has so many faces to it.
Mm,
It is something we all do. And let's get that out of the way. There, you know, you're not listening to two people who've got it all together all the time and don't do a little extra sometimes to get what we want or to get our way.
yeah.
Well, I can only speak for myself, Nina. That may not be the case for
No,
you.
you lumped me into that like pretty clearly right out of the boat.
Then I recovered. It was
Sort of,
recovery.
yeah. No,
And
it's true though. Like I manipulate myself on the daily. Before I can sit down and have my coffee, I have to go do the chore I don't like with, I gotta go clean the chicken coop.
yeah.
And that's good for them because otherwise they die and I wouldn't be feeding and watering them as well. So I get a good
So
carrot.
so people manipulate themselves daily to get up and go to the gym.
Yep.
They
Yep.
tell them things, they tell themselves things that they don't necessarily believe. But so is all so it's a lie. Is all
Yeah.
manipulation a lie? Is every manipulation based on a lie?
Yeah. And how would you know? Because you're not
I don't
inside
know.
your head, right?
Yeah.
I guess you
So
can only know if,
maybe there's a very thin line between manipulation and motivation.
oh, sometimes that's true.
I think so.
So, for the sake of today, we'll define manipulation as a negative
Yeah.
selfishness that comes out so that I can get what I want from another person. I'm going to control or attempt at control because I have motives that are selfish. We'll call it that.
Okay. So let's just look at couple of examples of how we might manipulate in a relationship, in a marriage. And I think one of them is going to be two or three levels deep, and that's passive aggressiveness. And when I say two or three levels deep, I'm talking about it takes an interaction and then another interaction and then maybe another interaction to be fully and for the passive aggressiveness to come to fruition. Um, one person says to the other, or they express something they'd like to have or like to do, and the other one lies and says, "Sure, okay, I'm fine with that," when they're not.
Hmm.
And then the other one does it, buys it, whatever the case might be. And then when it's all said and done, down another level, here comes another interaction afterward when the person that lied now pouts, now freezes out, now gives the silent treatment. What are the different ways? What are different faces of that even?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now, if I'm the one that asked for the favor or for the thing or to do something or go somewhere to begin with, and somebody lied and told me it was okay when it really wasn't, now I'm going, okay, so what's wrong?
Right.
Well, if you really loved me, or if you were even trying to communicate with me, you'd have been able to tell that wasn't what I really wanted.
Yeah, I
Well,
hate that.
yeah, but you're an adult, fully grown, and you said it was okay with you. Well, that's not what I really meant. Well, then why did you say it?
Exactly.
So have that. I mean, who hasn't had that conversation
Yeah.
sometimes, many times over?
Hmm. Yeah, the management by mind reading thing is just, sorry, it doesn't work. You can only operate in truth and have trust where people's words actually have any kind of value and credibility to them. If I have
So
to
what do you think
interpret,
is behind that?
well,
What do
yeah,
you think is behind the unwillingness to speak truth?
um, lots of stuff. But in the situation I'm thinking of is, I'm going to play this game with you where you guess what I actually want because if you guess right, then you actually know me and then I'm going to feel valued. Um, and you'll do what I want because you know me well enough to know what it is I actually want. Even though what I'm saying is, no, don't put yourself out, don't bother with it, or, it's all good. I want you to do what I really want you to do, but I don't have the identity solid enough to go, hey, I'd really like it if you not borrow my car on Thursdays anymore. Like that's not working out for me anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
can somebody just tell the truth? But it's fostering resentment because eventually you think, yeah, it always comes back when we lie, even if we think we're doing the right thing. I had somebody um, tell me one time because they used to say yes to things I would invite them to, and then they'd never show up. And so I I was and I'd follow up. I'd be like, "Hey, we're waiting for you to get here before we eat." And they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to come." So finally I called them on it and I'm like, "So what's going on with this where you say yes and then it like you're pretty consistent you're not coming?" And they're like, "Well, in the short run it makes you happy." I'm like, "I don't want that. I don't like thinking that I'm going to get to see you for 7 days and then you not showing up. I'm like I feel betrayed there a little bit. Like, don't manipulate me like that. Just tell me the truth. I'd rather have a truth of, hey, I'm not coming. Okay, I know how many places to sit at the dinner table then, you know, or how many reservations to make. You're not in charge of my happiness. Stop it. Just tell me the truth. When I ask you what are you doing, tell me what you are doing. That's the question.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I think one of the reasons that people frequently tell not truths in that passive aggressive mode is fear.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and the fear is of one of two things, and maybe both. It's fear of a confrontation.
Hmm.
They don't want that confrontation. We will avoid that at all cost. See, you know, hey, would you tell me the truth? No, I'd rather have a divorce. I mean, that's simplifying it, obviously, and
Right.
it's it's crazy the things we won't say or the things we do say in order to avoid a confrontation. The other, I think, is the unknown, the fear of the unknown, and not
Mhm.
knowing where, if there is a conflict, when I tell the truth, if it creates a conflict, where is it going to go? Uh, how bad could it be? Is there going to be an argument? Is there, uh, would it be the one that is the straw that breaks the camel's back?
Yeah.
Is it going to be something that causes us to not get along for the next week? I mean, we just don't know.
Hmm.
And that fear, I think, is very powerful in terms of what we decide to do or not do. Sometimes the things we're willing to enable that we know are not good, that we know are not comfortable, that we know is not a relationship builder, but one that tears it down. We do it anyway because the fear of the confrontation or the unknown is greater.
Hmm. Yeah. I you can let me know if you think this is manipulative. I was just thinking about it. Now I'm kind of paranoid about whether I'm manipulative or not now.
Ooh.
But I suppose if I'm asking the question, I'm really not, because my goal is altruistic. I start a lot of conversation because I tell the truth a lot with people. As a coach, you tell the truth. You make observations that people may not want to hear. um, and it's a frequent part of our discussions. But I start that with, "You're not going to like this." Before that, I ask permission. Is it okay if I make an observation? They'll always say yes. And then I'll say, "Okay, you're not going to like this." And I'm doing that because part of me is like, they probably won't like this. But as I examine that particular tool, it is a tool. I didn't read it somewhere. It's just a thing I started doing because, to your point, everybody's a little conflict avoidant. Um, People are usually a little more receptive when I tell them they're not going to like something. I'm Maybe I'm trying to manipulate their receptiveness to it, or maybe I'm trying to prepare them for this thing that they're probably not going to want to hear. But I think that when you ask permission to give an observation, and then when you say, "Hey, you're probably not going to like this," it creates an environment where somebody might be receptive. So I think if my motives were heinous, like I'm trying to hurt this person, that would be different. But the motive is altruistic. I'm trying to help them see something that they're
Mm-hmm.
blind to. So I don't think that that's evil and terrible. Um, but is it manipulative?
Well, I think this is where we draw that line between the two sides, if in fact all manipulation is not bad. If we say, is all manipulation bad? Yes, it's terrible. It's a horrible thing. It should be, eradicated from the face of the earth. Well, then we lose some carefully crafted methods of motivation in the
True.
process.
Hmm.
So it's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater to a point, although I would say it's not equal. There's probably
Yeah.
far less positive manipulation than there is negative manipulation going on.
I think you gotta. I think if you're questioning your motives and going, "Am I? What's my goal here?" you
Yeah.
know um I think you can, that's a great test for us. And the reality is that people can use good communication tools. Like please and thank you is a communication tool that helps you get along in society. Like hello, it's no different than being a good listener. But is it manipulative? Well, maybe. Like if your motive is to create a friendship so that you can get in good with this person so that they will give you this thing that you want, probably manipulative. And you're pulling out all of your skills to go create something there for yourself that's selfish. If your goal is to help somebody, that's different.
Hmm.
So, and the thing is that on the surface, it can look exactly the same. The other person would have no clue.
So what I hear you saying is that if I'm leaning out the window of my food truck trying to get someone to buy brisket from me, that if I am all yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and thank you, ma'am, that I'm manipulating them.
No, I'm saying that because I know your heart, you also make really good brisket. You're trying to share this gift of God with the
If
world.
if that is a manipulation, I fully own it. Okay,
Okay.
I do. I do, because I want them to buy that stuff.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
important.
Well,
I made it. It needs to go.
now, if you, is there such a thing as a Texan making terrible brisket? Like, is that real? I've never had Texas brisket that wasn't just amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Here's the thing. I mean, I've made some really bad brisket before, but that's before I knew what I was doing. So,
okay. So, did you sell it and insist it was
oh
awesome?
no,
Oh,
oh no, no,
so
no, no.
see, so
No, if it's not up to quality standards, it doesn't go out the window.
if I was you and in your business, I think I'd probably like have a lot of failed attempts there in my freezer. Like just so, now that's manipulating the government though. I'm taking a tax write-off, business loss.
It's the cost of doing business. You have to learn.
It, yeah, and we're not going to inflict that on our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're digressing. I'm derailing our train. I'm sorry. One
No,
of the
no.
one of the things we started this with though is attached. And we're talking a little bit about attachment styles this month. And I think we see some manipulation going on with some of these insecure attachment styles because secure people don't have the need to manipulate. They go through life being themselves and letting the chips fall where they lay because they're secure in who they are. Um,
Let's see. And what's that top attachment style called?
the secure one, the good
Oh
one,
yeah, the secure attachment
secure
style.
attachment style. That's, yeah, we all want to
Funny
be
how that
that.
works.
Yeah.
And that's the one everybody wants to be,
Uh,
in the Aristocats, everybody wants to be a cat. Okay. But in attachment styles, everybody wants to be in the secure attachment style. All
yes.
of the three other styles listed below it are lacking somewhere significantly.
Right.
And everybody's looking up at the secure people going, bah, I want to be like you.
Hmm.
I want to be your groupie.
Well, and when I was insecurely attached, I know that I would focus on how do I get people to do what I want them to do? How do I get something? When you're insecure, you're all about yourself and the way you interact in the world is, well, it's not healthy. So you're trying to make things happen in a way that usually doesn't work so well long term.
Yeah.
So,
Well, to beef up the point, one of the things that I see a lot of and have been through a lot of in my own personal life has been that I look for when we're seeing a lack of security or a lack of secure attachment is drama.
oh, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
When the security goes away, the drama will ramp up.
Yep.
When you say take security away, drama will fill the hole. Okay. And it happens in so many different ways, but um, being a part of kind of a clinical career, there's a word that I associate frequently with drama, and I love this word. I don't know. I don't know why. Just you fall in love with a word. You use it all the time. You like it. I don't use it a lot, but I really like it, and I like the way it just kind of flows out of the mouth. It's histrionics,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and when I think of drama, I think of people with histrionic behavior because histrionics actually is a characteristic of a lot of psychological disorders.
Yeah.
And histrionic, in its simplest dictionary definition, is about someone creating a great deal of drama in order to bring attention to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look at me. Hey, watch me. Hey, affirm me.
Yep.
Tell me how good I am. Tell me this, tell me that about me. And the drama, unfortunately, uh, is very damaging to relationships and to a lot of the other people that are involved with it, and that it hurts. But one of the worst types of histrionics, I think that happens in relationships is when people manipulate. They create drama in order to manipulate, in order to avoid consequences or
Mm-hmm.
things they've done, choices they've made, choices they haven't made, or they made the choice to not do something. There's lots
Yeah.
of ways to say that, but I think you get the point.
Yeah.
Things we do, things we don't do. It's all a choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you can see that play out in a lot of conversations, like when somebody confronts someone and says, "Hey, you borrowed my car and you brought it back and it was out of gas, and the last three times you've done that, it's becoming a pattern. I want to talk about that." And then you get a U-bomb launched in your face. Well, you never put the dishes in the dishwasher. I spent all afternoon picking up dishes all over this house. You had stuff in your office, you had things in your bedroom, and then on top of that, your socks were all over the floor. And I can't, like, I work too full time. And what do? I have to spend all my time picking up after. Okay, I can stop. You see what I mean? Like, I don't need
Yeah.
to model what's wrong, but I've just created drama when the other person brought a real problem. No, I'm going to create drama so that I don't have to deal with this thing over here that I should be saying, you know what, you're right. Uh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be doing that. Let me buy you a tank of gas because I owe you at least that. And if you'll keep lending me your car, I'll be better about it. Thanks for
Yeah.
letting me know.
So if I'm good for one tip today, if I'm good for one nugget
Bring
that
it
that
on.
that is helpful to people, you've just set me up for it perfectly. Because one of the healthiest things an individual can do for themselves, but that people can do inside the interactions that go on in a relationship, especially the ones that carry with them an accusation or accountability or a
Yep.
call for accountability.
Yep.
One of the best habits I think that a person can develop, and I wasn't forced to develop it, but I was encouraged to back in my graduate program when I got absolutely teetotal roasted, turned upside down, tipped over, and crashed into a brick wall by a support group or a therapy group that I was
Mm.
starting or a facilitator for. And when it was over with, my graduate assistant called me into his office and said, I hear things didn't go too well tonight. And I said, no, I was called everything but a white man, which is what I am. I
Hmm.
was called everything I'm not, by the people in this group. And he said, okay, well, I'm sorry that happened to you. But he said, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to ask yourself a question. He said, and you're going to want to answer it as soon as I ask it, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to ask the question and I want you to get up and walk out the door.
Nice.
And I said, okay. And he said, is it true? And I said, can I ask a question? And he said, yes. I said, is what true? And he said, what they said about you.
Mm.
So I did what I was told. I got my stuff and I walked out of the door. And I did not sleep one wink that night
Mm. Brutal.
because once I began asking myself the question about what happened in the group, for which I was totally innocent, by the way, uh, I began asking that question about myself in other things in my life, in other areas of my life,
Mm.
and other things people have said to me and about me and so forth.
Mm.
And I started finding myself wanting and not feeling that great about myself.
Mm.
So when I went back into the office the next day to discuss the question, uh, he had done his job so well by laying it in my lap and saying,
Yep.
you decide.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you what you need to find out on your own. Ever since that day, I'm not going to say I started out with a habit because we don't start that way, but gradually I began utilizing that question when I am in the midst of a conflict with another individual and have learned to more often than not, I'm going to say, I'm not going to brag it if it's true, uh, more often than not, when I find myself in conflict with someone else, I'm going to take a break before I respond. And in that break, I'm going to ask myself that question. And I'm going to be honest with myself and explore
Hmm.
because in the moment, I don't care about being honest with myself. In the
Yeah.
moment when my emotions are driving
Hmm.
me, if you made an accusation toward me, it's automatically untrue,
Right.
even if it is.
Yep.
And I don't think I'm any different than anybody else where that's concerned.
Well, we have these areas of wounding and belief systems that people's words will, trip over something in us or it sets us off. And it doesn't, like, truth is not really the issue. And in that moment, it doesn't matter what truth is. It matters that we have something that's been kicked, a scab that's been ripped off, injury that's poked, and that's a useful thing to have just happened. And so your point about let's not respond in this moment, hello, because you're not going to do anything good. That's why we have the connection steps that that's my first question to anybody that's like sending me volumes of complaint about their spouse and email and blah, blah, blah. I send them a thing back that says, have you done the connection steps? Like that's my response. That's what they get
I
from
send
me.
you a 3-page letter and you send them a one
I
sentence
do.
response.
I
And
do.
as soon as they see it, they're already seething because she didn't take it seriously.
I know
She,
they're already mad at me again,
yeah,
but it comes with the territory. Eventually, they come to, I'm not going to send. She's just gonna. Well, maybe I should try those. So, they have the whole fight with themselves, probably even out loud because we're all that crazy. I know I am. But to not take a moment and dig in. Nobody likes conflict, but it really is an opportunity for connection if you will do what you just said, if you'll figure out how to respond to yourself and your emotions there with God's guidance and help, and then look at the truth, you know? And I think that's probably one of the neat things about secure attachment is nobody's perfect at this, but you certainly do that more in that space because your identity isn't wrapped up in the opinion of somebody else. If you're
mhm.
fearful avoidant, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, they have to like me, and what do I do? How do I, yeah. And if you're what it was the avoidant dismissive, that one is just like, well, I'm not going to think about this.
Yeah.
I'm not.
That person is back way deep in a dark corner.
Yeah, exactly. Left the building,
Yeah.
dug a hole. There's a cave somewhere.
And it's locked
Yeah, exactly. And,
inside and out.
yeah, all of it.
Yeah.
And, to be in those spaces is so sad and disconnecting, which is what the enemy wants. We're
Yeah.
just playing right into his hand.
Well, you mentioned conflict. It's the thing we avoid. I don't want to, I mean, let's break this little egg open for a minute. It was just Easter. So,
Oh, good.
and I had way too many jelly beans.
Yeah.
Um, how many things change without conflict?
Bingo. Right?
You know, things don't change unless conflict occurs.
Yeah.
Why does conflict have to occur? Because God created us in such a way that each one of us has free will.
Yeah.
Each one of us has free will. In other words, we have the opportunity to pursue that which we choose. And almost always, all things being equal, work or unequal, doesn't really matter. We're going to choose what works best for us. And so maybe something is working best for me, but a change could occur that could allow it to work best for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do change. I don't do windows and I don't do change.
Okay.
I'd rather have a divorce. Remember?
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Um, and I know that's a bit simplified, but not as much as one might think. It's not necessarily just one conflict that will bring a newly hatched relationship to an end, but when they start hitting one right after the other, like life,
Hmm.
and people realize that conflict bites with someone that you do love,
Yeah.
they don't want to do it. And in order to not feel that, they will leave that.
Yep. I
So,
really, I really like is it Gary or Greg? There's a lot of G's in that family. Smalley's book, Nine Lies That Will
here,
Destroy Your Marriage. It's a three-step process where the first is a care cycle, which is like our connection steps, where you get emotional control, hello, figure out what's true. And the second one is a heart talk thing where you're able to back and forth with your partner, caring for them and listening, validating, all that kind of thing. The last part of the book is where everybody wants to start, which is win-win problem solving. But they have the neat thing about this book is that the idea of a no losers policy. And I think that is so important in marriage. So when you have a conflict, when you have a problem you need to solve, You need to have a nobody loses here. So let's find a solution where neither one of us are losing. And that's a tough thing to do sometimes.
Yeah.
It really is. And you have to be vulnerable enough to come face to face with what is it you actually want. Can that be achieved in different ways? Or do you have to be right and have to have your solution? And does your house, your like, is there something you're winning at the expense of your spouse, in which case the marriage itself is suffering and losing?
Mhm.
Because if your spouse loses, the marriage loses.
Oh, absolutely.
Oof.
As you'll see in the Hargrove change model, it doesn't have a name, but it's a change model that I created about 25 years ago, and it stood the test of time. One of the few things it has, because my body's not doing it. Um, but one of the things in there is, when the change that creates chaos in our lives becomes conflict and then requires confrontation. When we get to that point, our focus cannot be on being right,
Mm-hmm.
and it cannot be on winning,
Yep.
because right has an equal and opposite effect of wrong,
Yep.
and winning has an equal and opposite effect of losing.
Yep.
So when you start diving in a little deeper to words like resolve and resolution,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of it kind of changes the picture from somebody high-fiving, because they won while the other one is trudging off the field because they lost. I don't know. When I hear resolution, I don't see that picture.
Right.
I see people coming to the table and saying, all right, this is what I like about this, and this is what I don't. Well, this is what I like and what I don't. Where can you give and I take, and where can I give and you take?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think it sounds so darn simple that people think it's too simple and it can't really be that effective.
Oh my word. That I'm so glad you said that because everything to heal a marriage is simple. It really is. It's not an easy process to become
Mm-mm.
humble and to forgive, but it is a really simple process. And I like it that you said that because that's 100% true. Like you read the Bible, it's all there. Do the things. Submit to God, resist the enemy.
Mhm.
Have a nice day. Well, that's not the full scripture, but you get my point. Yeah, I'm really glad you said that. So, what's the one thing you want people to walk away from today with?
Well, we started talking about manipulation and drama. And I think the thing that is lacking when we practice this so much is the thing I would like to encourage everybody, to ask the question, is it true of themselves? And that is, you know, let's say I have had the accusation given to me that I lack humility. And I ask myself, is it true? And then I have to kind of go through things I do and don't do and feel and don't feel, and the way I treat my relationships, and come up with an answer to that. And I don't think there are any of us that cannot say, you know what, I could use a little more humility.
Amen. Yeah, me
So
too.
if there's one thing I have to say regarding manipulation and drama and histrionics and all the things, I think we start with asking God to help us be more humble, and we start seeing a decrease in the drama and the manipulation and the
Mm-hmm.
distractions,
Yep,
because they're not necessary when humility is present.
exactly.
So that's it.
Oh, that's rich right there. So if it was a math equation, you know, humility cancels out all those things.
If you say so. I don't do the maths. It's
Yeah. Well, I don't either, but it
not
sounds
in this DNA.
anyway. Well, one thing you do well is help others overcome some of their challenges. And if they live in the great state of Texas and any of this sounds like something you want to connect with Kyle over, please reach out, Kyle Hargrove, LPC at gmail.com. And in the meantime, hit that subscribe button, watch the next episode, listen to it. You'll learn something else about conflict and how to deeply connect with the people in your life that you love so much. We'll talk soon.